we come to our study tonight, I guess here's my question, Ronnie. If to answer your question it takes 2, maybe 3 lessons, is that going to upset you? There you go. Well, in the short answer, is it doesn't. It takes about 30 seconds. And so where the question came from was when we were looking at the baptism of Jesus in Luke chapter 3, that Jesus had been baptized and the voice from heaven spoke in Luke 3:22 and said, "You are my beloved Son, in you I am well pleased." And it goes on, it says then, now Jesus himself began to be about 30 years of age, being, as it was supposed, the son of Joseph, the son of Heli. And it goes all the way down, and we get to the end of the chapter, and it says, the son of Methuselah, the son of Enoch, the son of Jared, the son of Mahalalel, the son of Cainan, and the son of Enosh, and the son of Seth, the son of Adam, the son of God. And when you look at Adam as the son of God, there are 3 ways that there are sons of God. There's 3 sons of God. The first is the Son of God created. That's Adam. God created Adam. Adam has no father and no mother, therefore his source of origin and the very fact of his image is God. Therefore, Adam is the Son of God. Jesus is the Son of God in that through the woman Mary, he takes on everything that comes from Adam, but he also has a different origin in that he is begotten of the Word in the womb of Mary with her humanity, and he becomes the Son of God there. But then Jesus Christ also becomes a third category of Son of God, and that is Son of God born again. When we think about Adam as a son of God, he really was. And we touched on this a little bit this morning. In our rush for Jesus to be perfect, sometimes we overlook Adam and we overlook Eve. They weren't Adam and Eve originally, they were just Adam, Ish, and Isha. Humanity, the man and the woman that were human. Remember, when God brings a woman, he says she shall be called Isha because she was taken out of Ish. That was their names, man, woman. You know, he said, what'd she say to him? Yo, man. He'd be like, yo, woman. That's how they talk to each other. You say, you have no proof they said yo. That might be so. But if I do it a couple more times, I might just rhyme, you know. And so when Jesus continually calls his mother woman, it harkens back to that whole thing where their names were originally just Ish and Isha. Their name was Adam because everything that Eve was came out of Adam. It had already existed in Adam, and it came out of Adam, and it took form. And so in that sense, Eve was the daughter of God. Adam was the son of God. And this is where we all come from. And why I want to look at this in a little bit more detail, Ronnie, because now you've got your easy answer, right? You've got the easy answer. But come back over to Genesis with me. And I want you to see some of this for why there has to be 3 stages of sons of God. There's 3 stages. And I'm here to tell you, Jesus is no longer the only begotten Son of God. Now, someone might catch this and make a soundbite of it and go, false teaching heretic in Lake Butler, Florida. Jesus is no longer the only begotten Son. Okay? Yeah, we'll get to that. in this one too. We're going to at least get to the first 2 points. Third point will probably be saved for next week. All right. So Genesis 1:26, right? It says, so God created man, or God created humanity in his image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. This is where we start out. Man's design and pattern is based off of God's very structure and nature. Okay? You say image, that, yeah. Some of you have known people, if you could have taken a picture of, say, a Chippendale piece of furniture, and you would have had like a quarter next to it for them to have some measure of scale, what? You've known people that off of a picture, they could have rebuilt that entire piece of furniture off of a picture with just a quarter in the picture. Because what? The image of the thing allows you to construct the thing to be what it is. Whenever you buy a truck or a car, the image on the TV, the image in the magazine, it's a scaled down. It's qualitatively and quantitatively a little bit different, but the image represents the reality of what it is. And so God created man in his own image. Mankind is an accurate representation of God in his origin. But we're an interesting fusion. Look at chapter 2, verse 7. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man, or humanity, became a living being. This is why murder is so bad. It strikes out against us in ourselves, and it strikes out against the image of God in us. This is why murder is so bad. This is why gossip is second only to murder in terms of destruction. The moment I speak evil of you, I speak evil of God. There's no other thing. I can't harm you without, in my soul, saying if I could, I would stab God. And people, no, that's not. Yes, it is. In James 3, when he talks about why we're not supposed to talk trash about each other, he says, because you're made in the image of God. In Genesis 9, when he says why you're supposed to put men to death who murder other people, he says why? Because you're made in the image of God. Gossip and murder are both wrong because you're made in the image of God. That's how big a deal this is, right? But we're two elements. We have an element that comes from above, and we have an element that comes from beneath. Our physical bodies come out of this earth. There wasn't anything wrong with this earth. He made us out of the material for the realm in which we would function. And then he breathed of himself into us. But then we know that man committed treason. Man committed treason. So that chapter 3 and verse 19 says what? In the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you shall return. And it's at this point, and if you're looking at verse 20, it's at this point it says, and Adam called his wife's name Eve because she was the mother of all living. And it's a funny thing to me that once they bring death in, he names her the mother of all life. Every child that will ever be born as a son of Adam will taste death because of Adam and Eve. Yet he has the gall to call her the mother of all living when everything that comes out of her is death. You say, well, he's got a part in it too. No, it's the issue of the name. It's the issue of the name. Oddly enough, what? Mary will give birth to the one who dies, and in his death, he'll bring true life. It's a fascinating structure of how this is all set up. And so when we start to look at Jesus as the Son of God, there's two titles for Jesus, two main titles in the Gospels: Son of God and Son of Man. Son of God and Son of Man. Son of God. He has to come from the camp of what's divine in order to know and understand the mind of God. But he also has to unite with humanity. Because who engaged in treason against God? Mankind. He said, brother, I didn't. I'm going to just tell you straight out. Every one of us has committed an act of treason at some point in our life against God. The moment you sin, you've committed an act of treason against God's goodness. Don't say it that way. It doesn't make me feel good. Well, tough Twinkies. The cross of Christ is a terrible place to look to see what? The price that was paid. So if you want to feel good, go to the cross and say, thank God he redeemed me from my treason. Right? But don't get mad at me for saying we've all committed treason against him. We were in a non-winning scenario. For all of the good that we would ever do, we still were running up an account of debt as humanity. Now, in some situations, right? Someone else can pay off your debt. But we've touched on this before. If you get your debt paid off, but you don't learn how to live in prosperity, what good does it do for you to keep getting your debt paid off? You know, someone, no, brother, that's a good thing. The majority of people who win a lottery within 10 years will actually be worse off financially than they were before they won it. Why? Well, they can't handle $100 million. They can't handle it. The government gets their cut. It all goes to their head. And well, I bought Mama that house she always wanted. Well, I'm happy that you bought your Mama that house. When you lose all your money, who's going to pay Mama's taxes on that $2.3 million house that Mama always wanted? Well, Mom's going to lose that too. I bought everybody in my family new pickup trucks because I loved them so much. Well, okay, you're out your mind, son. And. You know, can they afford $1,000 worth of tires every time that comes time to replace their tires? And I haven't checked the last time since I put tires on my truck. I'm figuring I'm probably closer to about $1,600 now for a set of tires. Crack smoking. Yeah. No tires should ever cost more than $100, y'all. None. All right. You say, what does that have to do with Jesus? God from heaven can zero out the debt, but it still doesn't solve the problem of humanity. And that is humanity not having a means. And I haven't really ever asked this question since I've been here. I used to ask it more. How many of you realize that by the time it was possible for you to not have sinned as a person, it was too late and you had already sinned? Now, I've had people argue with me, no, brother, all of us have to sin. No, you don't. Jesus is the only one. If Jesus wasn't capable of sin, then it was a fake test. It was a fake game. If Jesus didn't have the same ability to fail, no, he couldn't have failed. I don't know about you, Kendall. Man, don't put me in a class with someone and say, yep, they scored 100% on their paper. Why? Well, because they couldn't fail. So they were going to get 100 no matter what. I don't know about you. Some tables and chairs are fixing to fly in that classroom. Yeah. Why? If you set up the game where there's no way for me to ever win, I don't mind losing the game if I lose it because I didn't know the rules, and by the time I figured out the rules, I was too far behind to ever catch back up. I get it. I'm going to lose the game. And in coming as Son of Man, Jesus comes down. He learns the same rule book. And I need you to understand that when Luke says, and go back and look at Luke with me for a minute here. The end of Luke chapter 2. I want you to see, right? Because we rush Jesus to being perfect. And don't anyone leave here and go, Brian didn't say Jesus. No, Jesus is perfect. But we rush him from cradle to cross, and we miss what's so important. Look at the last two verses of Luke chapter 2. All right, verse 51 and 52. It says, Then he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was subject to them. But his mother kept all these things in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men. Jesus had a learning curve. Oh, was he very mindful of what his mission was? Absolutely. Because right before we read that, at 12 years old, he's debating the law with the scholars in the temple. Okay? Right? But even after that, he increases in wisdom and in stature and in favor, those three categories, with God and with men. So he has to go through the same process we do. And this is a whole different study for a different time. Never, ever underestimate how exceptional Joseph and Mary were. Okay? One of these times I'll do a lesson on Joseph. Here's what we know of Joseph that he said. 0. That dude's faith and obedience, though, through the roof. Through the roof. Seriously, it's like Jesus, Mary, and Joseph as far as faith and obedience. It's amazing. And so he goes through that so that when we come to Hebrews chapter 2, begin at verse 5. And I'm not trying to go super fast tonight, y'all. Is that all right? All right, Brother Tommy said I'm good to not go super fast. Phyllis, Brother Tommy said I don't have to go fast. Quit trying to rush me. All right, let's look at and read verse 5. He says, For he has not put the world to come, of which we speak, in subjection to angels. But one testified in a certain place, saying, What is man that you are mindful of him? Or the Son of Man that you take care of him? You have made him a little lower than the angels. You've crowned him with glory and honor and set him over the works of your hands. And you put all things in subjection under his feet. So this is David by the Holy Spirit reflecting on the original creation of man. And this is how David says, this is how you set it all up. Now look at the rest of verse 8. For in that he put all in subjection under him, he has not left anything not put under him, but now we do not yet see all things put under him. And he's talking about humanity in general. And the reason why that we don't see it, we aren't crowned with glory and honor in our flesh now. That's gone. Everything isn't in subjection under our feet like it was intended. Everything that he put us over, a lot of it will kill us now. And, there's two or three things that I look at whenever we get ready to go to St. Augustine. Now look at tide times. Now I like to go when the tide is coming in, not when the tide's going out. I like the tide coming in. That way, if I get a little bit tired, it'll push me in. Now, it may be half a mile down, but it'll still push me in, right? And I can't remember the name for the other factor that I look for, but basically the other factor is how wicked, nasty, mean is the ocean today, all right? And it's got this factor, And I told Catherine, because I started watching the factors. And I was like, okay, well, no wonder it beat me up. And after 5 minutes in the ocean, I was ready to take a 3-hour nap. It was a factor of 14 or whatever it was. So I started making little notes to figure it out. You say, what does that have to do with anything? Very few things ever scare me. I'm not going to say nothing ever scares me because that'd be a lie. Very few things have ever caused me any moment of terror like the ocean. First summer we were here, we went over there, and they put sunscreen on little man. And I had him in my arms, and I got hit with a wave. And it hit me, and it hit him, and it hit him hard enough that being just freshly lubricated, he popped out, came up, got the salt water and stuff in my eyes, and when I tell you I glanced, I could not see anything. You say, oh no, no. And I shoved my hand down where I thought maybe. And I grabbed hold of something, and I yanked him up. Now, he had little bruises on his arms. And I yanked him up. And someone else on the beach, they were on their way to run into the water because they saw it happen. He said, in my heart, I know if we'd have been too late anyways. And any respect that I still lacked for the ocean that day, the ocean taught me on that day, as quick as that, it'll beat you. And you say, no, I got him up, I got him out. He was crying. It wasn't fun for him. It wasn't fun for me. And it still causes me stress anytime I think about it. And you say, that scared me. I've had a lot of things in my life that ain't even come close to scaring me as much as that did. That one terrified me. You say, what does that have to do with this? When Jesus commands the wind and the waves, peace, be still. Do you understand? And this is a hard thing for people to get. What Jesus did in his humanity, Adam and Eve could have done the same stuff until they committed treason. Because the moment they committed treason, they placed themselves in opposition to the rest of the universe. God's, quote, curse on them was telling them the consequence of how they cursed themselves. Quick physics lesson, Kendall. Car versus train, who wins? Train. I love all these rules and laws they've come up with. Yield the right of way to all the smaller vehicles, and in my head I'm thinking, when I was a kid, what they taught us was, if you're on a bicycle and someone else is in a car, yield. If they're in a truck, yield. If they're in a semi, definitely yield. If they're a train, just wait. Why? This world is not in subjection to us like it was intended. So there's a lot of things, and when you want to understand the cumulative effect of sin, as you look, as the world increases in ungodliness, and some people argue with me on this, Romans tells us the creation is groaning because of our sin. The created realm lashes back out because of our sins. It has an effect. It's like throwing rocks into the water. It has an effect. And so when we see Jesus having the ability to command these things, you know. And I just, and on Adam and Eve being able to do all kinds of stuff, I still go back to, God told them to tend the garden, yet apparently he did not give them gasoline and power tools. So how were they going to take care of the garden? You know, Ronnie, if I could have taught my dogs to dig right where I wanted them to, brother, I could have built a fence in a day. Did you know if you can tell beavers chew up that wood stock, that wood pile, you don't need your own wood chipper. And they make short work of it. They got them nice big teeth. You know, it's like the old thing we used to say, how much wood would woodchuck could chuck wood? Same thing, right? What if you needed 10 trees cleared out? And you could say, Mr. Elephant, do you three mind going on ahead and pushing those three out of the way? Oh, termites. Yeah, we want to go on ahead and get the roots cleaned out. Termites go on ahead and eat up the roots. They say, oh, brother, you're just coming out with crazy stuff. How were they supposed to take care of everything when the only thing they had was themselves covered with glory and the ability to be in perfect communion and harmony with the universe? That when a talking serpent comes up to this lady, she doesn't jump back and go, oh my goodness, a talking serpent. She's like, hey, what's up? He's like, hey, how you been? Long time no see. Yeah. How's it going with the eating thing? Oh, pretty good. Hey, can you eat of every tree? Well, you know. I don't know about you, Brother Tommy. If I see a Komodo dragon, that thing stands up 6 foot tall and looks me in the eyes and says, yo, Brian, what's up? Brother, I'm running in the house and getting my shotgun and my machete. And we're going to town, brother. You say, why would you do that? What do you mean, why would you do that? If you see a lizard thing, stand up and look you in the eye and say your name. It's time to get out of Dodge, y'all. But for them, that was normal life. So that when Hebrews chapter 2 continues, verse 9, he says, but we see Jesus. And this right here is the whole why he had to be Son of God and Son of Man, Ronnie. But we see Jesus. For how things look under our control, man, we've made a mess of it. And I love when people like to cast blame. Well, the Republicans. Well, the Democrats. Well, the communists. Newsflash. Which sides have made a mess of everything? All sides, yeah. Both, all sides. Pick how many sides you want. All right? How many remember back in the day when you could dump your oil in your yard? All right? Some of you go, I never did that. Okay. We already took communion today, right? But we see Jesus, who was made a little lower than the angels for the suffering of death, crowned with glory and honor, that he, by the grace of God, might taste death for everyone. Which death? The death that accompanies the act of treason. Jesus tastes the fullness of what Adam and Eve deserved for their treason and everything that came with the curse. And he's done that for all humanity. And he could only do it as a man, because it had to be a son of Adam to redeem Adam's sons. But all of Adam's sons were corrupt. Therefore, God comes and he takes on all of the weaknesses and all of the struggles of Adam's sons, specifically so that he can make and take care of everything that Adam's sons can't. And this is why we start to look at, why did Jesus have to take human flesh? All right? And so that when we come to John 1, and we're not going to get there because I'm going to cut the lesson now because we're at a decent pause point. I know that makes everybody mad that I'm not going to stretch out another 18.5 minutes. But verse 14 of John 1, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. The only one, Ronnie, monogenes. That's the word, monogenes. The only one that has come out of the being of the Father. Come out of the being of the Father, as far as when he took human form. And we'll pick that up next week. We'll pick it up next week. We're going to pick up more of it next week, but I wanted to at least give you that to take with you tonight. Okay? And so you say, well, what does all this stuff have to do with me and as I go back out in this week? Here's what it has to do with. The struggles we have in life are because our great-grandfather Adam betrayed all of his grandchildren. It's as simple as that. All sin, sickness, disease, suffering, all of it is because great-grandpa was given total dominion over everything for all of it, for himself and all of his grandchildren, basically in perpetuity. As long as they took care of the garden and left one tree alone as far as eating. They could have eaten of the tree of eternal life. They could have done all kinds of stuff. And I always think about Hezekiah. You know, when Hezekiah is told, here's what's going to happen to Jerusalem, and Hezekiah says, well, is it going to happen during my lifetime? And he says, no, it'll happen to your grandchildren. And Hezekiah goes, all right, well, if everything is destroyed and laid waste after I'm dead, it's fine with me. Wow, what a terrible philosophy. What a terrible philosophy. Well, that's how much great-grandpa Adam thought about us. And you say, wow. So when Jesus Christ comes, y'all, we have someone that he has literally experienced within his body every aspect of the curse. Every aspect. If it was attached to the curse, if it's part of sin, sickness, and disease and death, he took it in his body and bore it on the tree. This is why, as the day went on, Jesus became so deformed that in addition to the beating and everything else that came upon him, that he was no longer recognizable as a human being. And I need you to understand that, because you don't have to stay where you've been, because he redeemed you from your past life. He made you new, and now you don't have to be held by the things in your past. You can choose to walk in the blessings of the now and with the hope of the future. You're no longer tied to great-grandpa Adam. You're tied to our older brother Jesus, because he made good all of Adam's bad debt, so that everyone who wants to be with him can be with him. And when we talk about grace, that's why I get so upset when people go, grace is God's unmerited favor. That is such a cheap way to define it. The entirety of all humanity reconciled and has an opportunity to go up and even a little bit higher than where we even started out, purely because he wants us there. How amazing.